Well, good morning. My name's Bill and I'm an alcoholic. And today's share is called Slow Down. Stopping drinking was tantamount to hopping and skipping to the North Pole. It was impossible. In those 25 years that I drank, even the thought of stopping drinking was incomprehensible. It frightened me, and anybody who mentioned anything about cutting down or stopping or drinking different drinks was just whistling in the dark. The problem was that I'd never ever, from my very first drink, at 8 years old when I got drunk, I'd never been able to control how much I drank. It seemed to me like my alcoholism had a life of its own. It had a momentum of its own, and it had a speed of its own. It drove itself, and I was just the passenger. Whatever I thought and whatever I wished for, whatever I promised myself, nothing, absolutely nothing did any good whatsoever in helping me to control my drinking, because I couldn't stop. Maybe occasionally, maybe just occasionally, I could stop for an event. Or once I stopped for 2 days. I remember it very clearly. I stopped for 2 days. It was a Monday and a Tuesday. But these were more daily reprieves than any kind of long-term solution. Although when I did stop, I suppose I was, maybe a little bit serious about, I need to do something about my drinking. But I kind of knew at the back of my mind that it was only temporary. My alcoholism, has its own roadmap for which I have no control over. My alcoholism is a law unto itself, where even the mightiest will in the world couldn't stop me drinking. Slowing down, taking it easy, controlling what I drink were bywords to craziness to me. I hated them. They annoyed me. I got resentful when people said them to me. They were like the boy whistling in the dark in the big book. They were wishing for the impossible. I knew that, and I think everybody else knew that. No one likes to think of themselves as weak-willed, as unimportant, as not worthy. But alcoholics have one way to deal with criticism. They just drink more. Well, I did anyway. I didn't like people criticising me. But even worse than criticising me was criticising my drinking, because they were going to the very heart of what made my life tick. It was like having my engine pulled out to even consider or mention taking my alcohol away or cutting down or sorting myself out. And so that cycle of deprivation and dishonour continued to spiral out of control, from where it started as an 8-year-old to where it eventually got. It took on a momentum of its own, and it was like a steam train going at 100 miles an hour. There was absolutely no way of stopping it. Where promises are thrown aside, any hope I had in the world was dismantled, and any willingness to sort things out never really left the starting blocks. I had a lot of false starts, and I had an increasing lack of empathy for others who criticised my alcoholism. And that lack of empathy for others really depicted how my alcoholic day would go. Where drinking took on a life of its own. Where drinking took away the remorse of yesterday. It eliminated the guilt of my past. And it was very good at obliterating any notion that one day I could ever get my drinking sorted. If all this sounds very familiar, you may well take a few minutes to consider asking yourself one thing: do I need help? I needed help from probably 14 years of age. I knew that. I could see it. I was already pushing my friends away, drinking with older people. I was putting a barrier between me and anybody who even mentioned the amount I was drinking. And I would never ever consider asking for help. I couldn't. But it was only after I took drinking to a place where my own death seemed a viable option did I just start to think, do you know what? Maybe I need to do something about it. And just in the nick of time, I did make a call, and I made that call to Alcoholics Anonymous. And it was just in the nick of time. My eyes were yellow. I was painfully thin. Suicide was a daily option for me. I could see no way out. And I like what I heard years ago, that in those last heavy days of drinking, there was no friendly direction left. And that's what it was like for me. And so I made the call to Alcoholics Anonymous, and to the start of what I now know as a brand new life. I thought slowing down and balance were passwords for weak-willed people. I couldn't slow down for anyone. And as for balance, I hated balance. I saw them as pathetic, and I saw balance and slowing down as unworthy for me, because I had a feeling that I was somehow special and different. And if you've got a feeling of being special and different, to be like other people is impossible. It's bone-crushingly horrible to think that you might end up like the people that you despise. And I actually felt very sorry for those that did a very little every day and seemed to just plod on slowly, but actually got everything done by the end of the day. But they would plod on slowly, and if it wasn't finished that day, it could be finished the next day. If I went out to weed the garden, I'd be out there at midnight with arc lights, finishing the weeding. It had to be finished. Why, I don't know, but I decided other people can go out there and do a little bit, put the weeds in the bucket, go out there the next day, do a little bit more, do another flower bed. They will spend a couple of weeks doing it and enjoy it. Mine became a North Korean route march, where if I decided to do something, it had to be done at breakneck speed, and it had to be done properly, it had to be done to perfection, and nothing would stop me in my quest for achieving what I had decided to do, because my expectations were such that if everything I do is perfect, then nobody can criticise me, nobody can laugh at me, nobody can point the finger. But in Alcoholics Anonymous, if there's one thing I've had to learn that has probably been the most difficult thing I've ever had to do in my life, and that was to slow down. Easy does it, but do it. Think, think, think. Let go and let God. They were all little sayings that I could see the morals in them. I could see other people achieving them. But I couldn't see myself doing it. And the whole programme of the 12-step recovery programme of Alcoholics Anonymous starts with 2 words. For without those 2 words, I'd still be travelling at 1,000 miles an hour whilst trying to work a programme that moves eye-watering slowly. And my life, my past life, and the speed I led it by, and my new life in Alcoholics Anonymous didn't mix. I would be travelling at 100 miles an hour whilst AA said, just slow down a bit. Just be able to sit by yourself whilst doing absolutely nothing and be at perfect peace with the world. It wasn't ever going to happen to me. Those 2 worlds have never met in my life, and I doubted they ever will. So if you want to stop drinking, take a bit of advice from someone who's been trying to slow down for 1/4 of a century. Try sitting for 1 minute, 60 seconds each day, just looking at the wall and doing absolutely nothing. It's excruciatingly painful to start with. But recovery is about taking actions over and over and over again until such time that those actions bring about a change in you that becomes a working part of your life. And from looking at that wall for 60 seconds, which was possibly the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life, it gets easier as the days go on. And if for nothing else, you'll have started the process that everyone in recovery needs to do to stay stopped. And that's to practice the key to a long and happy and serene and spiritually sober life. And it's all tied up in the one saying we hear and see every day in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Easy does it, but do it. Bill the Shirt, Bristol.